Here we are. This right here will represent our sketch. Now, we generally wouldn't have it in Photoshop, but for our purposes here, we are going to pretend like this is our printout where we sat down, we determined with our clients how the site would be laid out. All right, so now we know that this is our design, and we have to set up the grid. If we can set up a grid that corresponds to our sketch, then a lot of our work is done. So we know that each of these squares at 960 should be 80 pixels high, 80 pixels wide. Okay, we won't get you confused with the responsive part yet, maybe later. Okay, so if they're 80 pixels wide, let us create our website, or our initial file. So we'll go File, New, make sure it's in pixels. We will create this 960 by, let's say, 500, well, 560. When you go to Mooseloose, when it helped you calculate this, it told you, open a new file, make it 960 pixels wide, 560, or some other multiple of 80, see below. And well, whatever will give you adequate height to work with. You will be making and using 12 columns. You are working with a width of 960 pixels, so set your grid guides to 80. Now this is how you set your grid guides. Okay, so now I have my 960 by 560. But what about my guides? Well, if I have my ruler up, if I don't, I can hit Command R and it'll get you your ruler. You double click your ruler, go down to Guides, Grid, and Slices, and you will see this grid line every so many pixels. Make sure it's pixels, not inches, and you can determine however many grids you need. But since we determined, because Mooseloose told us, set your grid guides to 80, we will do that, 80, and we'll make sure subdivisions are 1. Now if I hold my command and click quotations, the double quote, I get a grid that exactly corresponds to my design. So I'm working on the same format, 12 columns, each one being 80. Let's see. Okay, so here it is. Absolutely corresponds, which means that my sketch that I sketch out with the client will be exactly the way it is here. Okay, so let's begin. Now we determined by our sketch that our header was going to be 960 by 160. So let's go to our design file, and let's create our header. I'm going to put it on a different layer. Okay, so this is going to be exactly as it shows in my design, 960 by 160. Let's take a look at that again. Okay. Okay, so we're doing pretty good so far. Now we see that our sidebar is going to be 160 across. So I'm going to create a new layer underneath my header. Let's just go ahead and make it the green that it's going to be in the end. Okay. And I'm going to reduce the opacity because we don't want it crazy green. Okay, so now we're going to create a new layer, and let's make our sidebar. Now let's see, the sidebar is going to be 2 columns. We know that's 160, so let's go ahead and fill this with another green. Okay, now it looks like it's all goofed up with the header because we have a transparency on this, so all we have to do, of course, is select the portion that we don't want on that layer and delete it. Good. Now at any time we can hit Command quotation and see how our site is coming along. But as you can see, we are creating it according to the grid that we determined. Okay, then you have your section, which will probably be white. And then we have this other sidebar, which will be 3 grids. So let's create that too. We could create another layer for that one too. Probably a good idea, don't you think? Okay, now according to our plan, it's going to be 3. So let's create our 3 column. Okay, so now we can see exactly what we have going here. 2 rows, 2 columns, 3 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now all we have to worry about is the footer. So let's make our footer. Let me create a new layer for that one too. Okay, at any time hold your command quotation and see your website. Okay, so you can see how this exactly corresponds with the grid that we created in our Illustrator and in our sketch.